Hebrews 7:19. For the law made nothing perfect. What did the law do? Nothing perfected. So a government of thousands of years and nothing perfected. If the law didn't perfect it, it's useless. The law perfected nothing. And that is why right there in Hebrews chapter 9, you can see verse 9, it was symbolic for the present time in which both gifts and sacrifices are offered, which cannot make him who performed the service perfect in regard to the conscience. The law perfected nothing. Now notice, regarding this detail, the law waited for all of those years to see if anyone would manage to fulfill it, but nothing could be perfected. And then Christ arrives and dies and resurrects. And as soon as he resurrects, he begins with perfection. He said, let's perfect this from the beginning. With a single offering, he made them perfect forever. Notice the difference. They waited thousands of years, and finally the law said, I couldn't perfect anyone. Look at what else he did. He says that he sanctified us, washed us, and made us spotless and blameless. In other words, that this new government is Christ, the governor. Christ in us is the hope of glory. It says, now thanks be to God who always leads us. Say, always leads us in triumph in Christ, and through us diffuses the fragrance of His knowledge in every place. For we are to God the fragrance of Christ among those who are being saved. Hey, you know that we are a pleasing and fragrant aroma. The one this government doesn't have, the pulpit this government lacks, is not a pleasing aroma to God. Rather, it stinks. Every Sunday, I think there's a bad smell from those pulpits unfamiliar with this new government. But when you go to work, you are a pleasing aroma. When you are in the office, when you are at the airport, when you go to visit your country, you are a pleasing aroma. Because every time you give a cassette and share a cassette, right then that person is invaded of this government. Don't you see that faith is a form of government? And it leads you in triumph. Even though you might not consider it a victory, God is present saying, I am waiting for you to realize that I always lead you to triumph. As the Apostle Paul wrote to Philemon, he said, behold, concerning all the goodness that resides within you, which is God's government. God is ruling. Do you know what the only problem is? That this government dragged on? It stopped. God gave Paul the directives for the government. But in Rome, the government ceased because God's government is through the mind. God does not appear before you to rule over you or threaten you. What God seeks is your mind. That is why Paul says that I serve God with my mind. So when He takes over your mind, then you no longer need the pastor. He already leads you and rules you in your home. That's why you see that you don't need to keep calling for help. You don't need a psychologist or a psychiatrist, because when He takes over your mind, Isaiah says that that little boy who was God is a counselor. He gets inside you and advises you and speaks to you and tells you, don't do this. Now, yes, don't go now. Go later. He gives you instructions.